with your name, title, all that.
Gotcha.
Spell it.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, so my name is Charlie Vasquez, C-H-A-R-L-I-E, and Vasquez, V-A-Z-Q-U-E-Z. Again, I'm Charlie Vasquez, Chief of Police here at the Tampa International Airport Police Department, and I want to speak with you today about July 1st and House Bill 543 that's coming into effect, and I want to speak to you about it from an airport perspective, not from a general perspective. So the important thing to remember is that weapons inside a passenger terminal at the airport still remaining legal under 543. And so our goal today is to inform, to educate, before we have to enforce. We want to let people know that you can't bring a weapon to the airport unless it's securely packaged for shipment according to TSA standards and it's declared. If you come into the airport with the weapon in the airport in the passenger terminal, it is a misdemeanor second degree in Florida, which is punishable by 60 days in jail and or a $500 fine and up to 6 months probation. So please, if you have a weapon, if you're going to take advantage of permitless carry, remember the criteria for permitless carry is the same criteria as it is for obtaining a CHL. You still have to meet all the same criteria. You just do not have to go get a permit. So if you come to the airport and you get caught at TSA through screening checkpoint, it will be a Class A misdemeanor. You'll more than likely be arrested. It's going to ruin your trip wherever you were going. And then you have to deal with that in the court. And we'd rather that not happen at all. We'd rather inform you and educate you that even though it's permitless carry, the same places that were off limits before are off limits on July 1st, and that includes airport passenger terminals. At this point, I would like to introduce the Federal Security Director, Kirk Skinner.
Thanks, Chief. Good morning, everyone. Perfect, thank you. My name is Kirk Skinner, K-I-R-K, Kirk Skinner, S-K-I-N-N-E-R. I am the Greater Tampa Bay Federal Security Director for Tampa International Airport, St. Pete, Clearwater, and Sarasota, Bradenton airports. The Chief covered a lot of the information. The good news is this doesn't change how TSA operates at the checkpoints. However, it's a great occasion to remind everyone of what some of the ramifications are if you bring a firearm or any other weapon to the checkpoint. Fines were recently increased for firearms. It goes up to $14,950 for the first offense. If you are a second-time offender, which that does happen, you can have significantly greater fines than that. It's highly recommended that when you come to the airport, before you even start to travel, pack in an empty bag. Make sure it's totally empty and start packing then. You'd be surprised how many times we hear, I didn't know it was in there, this was the same bag I went to the firing range with last week. But that's not going to be an excuse when we actually run the civil action investigation. Other ramifications, if you are a pre-check passenger and you bring a firearm to the checkpoint, you will lose your pre-check for 5 years. Secondary to that, you are also eligible for extra screening as you come into the checkpoint during that time period. So there's no excuse for bringing a firearm into the checkpoint. All I can tell you is that you need to be a responsible firearm owner and understand all of the rules, all the restrictions, and hopefully before going to pick up your first firearm, if that's going to be you, you will opt to get firearm instruction and learn how to responsibly carry that weapon. But at no time should you ever bring it to the checkpoint. If you're going to travel with a firearm, make sure that you go to your air carrier and ask them if they have additional restrictions on placing that in your checked baggage. You're going to need a hard-sided case with a lock, and that's at a minimum. So make sure you check with everyone that might have anything to do with touching that firearm during your travel.
Kirk? If y'all have any questions, either for the airport police department or TSA, we'd be happy to take questions at this time.
Chief or director, how is it possible that for all these years, all this equipment we have out everywhere, that people still make this mistake?
Sometimes people just forget. They just forget they went to the range with a bag, and then they got home, and then they're getting ready to go travel somewhere, and they packed their bag and didn't check it, and they just forget when they get to the screening checkpoint.
And I was just going to say, it's not the equipment that's at the checkpoint that makes the difference. We've got great equipment, and obviously we're going to find that weapon when it goes through our equipment. To the chief's point, I think it's especially individuals who have carried a firearm for a long time and they carry it consistently, it becomes a piece of them. And that part of their brain switches off, but the idea that you don't know where your firearm is, that in itself makes it a dangerous situation for everyone involved, to include my screeners, fellow passengers, and those people that you may be traveling with that day. It's just inconceivable that you would not know it's there. That's setting up a classic situation for a discharge of that firearm.
So when you go through the training, you get education on when and where you can't bring it. And so our job today is to provide some of the education. I know the Florida Sheriff's Association has done a good job with it. The Florida Police Chiefs Association has done a good job with it. The Pinellas County Sheriff's has put out a lot of question and answers as well, where you can and cannot carry. And so our job is just to inform and educate before we have to enforce. We don't want our last resort to put somebody in jail for that. We'd rather that you understand the laws as they're written and abide by them.
So I could tell you that year over year, calendar year from January through June last year, there were 76 firearms at my 3 airports. We had a 26% increase already this year. We're up to 88. So it's not just an issue with a constitutional carry, concealed carry, possibly increasing the number of individuals that are carrying firearms. It's a trend in general, and that's been going on for the last 10 years that I've been here. Part of that could be increase in population. You've got an increase in the number of people that are carrying. But it just doesn't give us any real clues to what the fundamental problem is with individuals not understanding that they can't bring that firearm. And I think we're already up over 350 weapons total this year, but I'd have to double check the numbers.
And some of it also is decreased passenger levels. As more people come through checkpoints, there'll be more people coming through inadvertently with weapons. And like I said, the vast majority of the time, people just forgot it, that they had it in their bags.
If people make an honest mistake, they still face all penalties if we meant purposely to bring it?
That's correct. That's correct.
On both sides, both local law enforcement and TSA at the federal level.
How do you evaluate the quality of the messaging from the state to make sure people are aware not only of the laws on airports, but around the laws governing this area?
So we do the best we can, and there's really no way to know if we affected it, if people listened and ignored it, or people didn't get the message. And so the best we want to do is just inform and educate before we have to enforce. Enforcement is our last resort. We want people to know the law, abide by the law, so that we don't have to come into play.
Do you think there's been enough messaging out there?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. All of the above. I mean, everybody's got a different reason. I forgot it. You hear them. I was at the range yesterday. I forgot to pack my bag, or I haven't had this bag for a long time, and they just picked it up. They just forget it. I mean, we've had some that have come through with weapons on holsters in their hips. Just, I don't know how you forget that, but it does. So it just runs the gamut.
How important is it for you guys to make sure that weapon doesn't get past these security checkpoints?
Sure, that's paramount.
So it's probably not the greatest concern I have for the checkpoints, obviously. There's a number of threats that we deal with every day, but it certainly is the most concerning in terms of these are passengers who are traveling commercially to either go on vacation or it's a business trip. They have no ill intent. They're not bringing the firearm here to the airport to break any law. They just don't know they have it. So, that situation for me really gets down to ensuring that the passenger, when he gets to the checkpoint and we find that weapon, that at that point, the passenger no longer has the ability to access either the bag or the weapon that's in it until the chief and his officers can get here and take control of the weapon and the passenger. Yeah, so we've got computed tomography now, and those are the fancy spaceship-looking X-rays out there. It's like the MRI that you get at the doctor. You've seen your MRI results where it can slice and it goes through. That's how good these are, and we rapidly find those, take control of it, and dispose of it as necessary.